Hello and welcome to this video. It's going to be about a topic that many practice owners run into over the course of their ownership of a practice, and that is staff who are resistant to change. I just recently had a consulting call with one of my clients, and he was sharing with me about how he had purchased this practice here recently, and some of the staff were kind of left over from the previous office, and they were having a hard time wanting to get on board with what he wanted to do as far as changing the practice and making some improvements. They were kind of resistant to his ideas, even though he's the owner now of the practice. The old owner is gone, and he's now the new owner. They were even kind of pushing back against him wanting to move forward with it. And so I've kind of put together this video to kind of address this particular client's issue, but I've heard this from several other dentists over the years when they have a practice and they're trying to move it forward, and the staff just seem to be putting up roadblocks to their progress. So let's go over a few things I think you can maybe do to see what you can lay down the most fertile ground that you can in order to make the practice move forward. First of all, before we get to the staff themselves, let's talk about you, the actual owner of the practice, the dentist. I'm going to assume the doc owner here. You have to know what's your vision for the practice. You have to get very clear on this. I went over this in another video. You can look it up, called Growth Options for Dentists, where I go over these 3 points in particular, but I'll just cover them briefly right now. Decide, what do you want to be? Are you going to be a solo practitioner, or is it going to be you plus another doctor, or maybe multiple doctors? Kind of know where you are ultimately heading, is what kind of practice that you're wanting. Do you want to stay in your current location? Do you want to expand your current location? Do you want to move to a whole nother location altogether? These are very logistical, questions that you need to answer, very basic ones, but this kind of helps formulate the idea for your vision. And then what kind of service mix do you want to have? What kind of procedures do you want to have incorporated into your practice? And then what's going to be your strategy on how you want to move forward with it? Again, this is all gone over in that other video called Growth Options for Dentists. When you go through that video, you'll be able to better articulate what it is that you're wanting for your practice so that you can move forward to where you want to go. And so, again, is it clear enough that you can articulate this to your staff? Is it clear enough that you could actually write this down or type it up in a Word document so everyone in your staff, including yourself, is clear on which way you're going? You don't want to just have something that's vague and just kind of bland that just says, we want to be the most, the premier dental office in our area for cosmetic dentistry. That's hard to really measure. It's hard to really kind of go through how you want to do it. It's good to have something specific. It doesn't have to be something you broadcast out to, your patient base. This is something internal for you and your staff. It's how you're going to do it. There was a book by Jack Welch, who was the CEO of GE, and he was talking about his strategy, very clear. They want to be number one or number two in their market for all these different divisions they have within General Electric. And if they can't be one or two within a certain time frame, they just want to sell it off. I mean, that was their strategy. It's not how they, again, promote this to their customers. This is kind of the internal idea of how they want to move forward. So how is it that you want to move forward? Again, be clear with what that's going to be. And so this whole idea about the vision, this is, remember, it's your vision. You're the owner. You're the one that has the risk. You're the one that's paying off the debt. You're the one that's going to be there through thick and thin. Staff are going to come and go, but you as the owner is going to be there. So it has to be what your vision is. And of course, that's your responsibility to articulate that. You have to put that together. Let's move on to number 2. Does your culture allow for mistakes? You see, if you're going to be making changes, there's going to be some mistakes along the way. Do you allow for that? There was, or there is, a professor at Harvard Business School, Amy Edmondson, who put together this 2x2 matrix on what she has found, and not dental practices, but just business in general, what they run into as far as the culture when you are trying to create a place that you want to move towards. And what you're trying to move towards is this upper right one, this green thing called the learning zone. It's where you have both accountability, you want performance, but you also have the emotional safety of people being able to try to do their performance and knowing that they're not always going to be successful, or they're going to make mistakes along the way. You can see how you can kind of put together these different permutations. If you have, let's just say on the opposite end, low accountability, like nobody's really accountable, there's no pressure, and it's also not a really safe place, because if someone were to make a suggestion or were to try to do something and it didn't result in something, or it resulted in a loss of some sort, if they knew they're going to get somehow zinged from that, they'd be very apathetic about the whole thing. They would not even want to try. So that'd be the apathy zone. If you're saying, I want high accountability, I want results, and by the way, you better not mess up, that's going to create anxiety in your staff. Again, not going to be moving forward. And then if you have this thing where there's low performance, but you provide all this emotional safety, it's in a comfort zone. It's fine. You might get some traction, but you're not going to really accelerate forward because you're not really holding anyone accountable. So you need both the accountability and the psychological safety in order to put yourself into this learning zone. So here's the thing with learning zone. You as the owner, you're going to have all kinds of great ideas because you're kind of forced to come up with ideas. But staff can add a new perspective. And you want their creative ideas. You just don't want to be the king or queen of your entire practice and everyone just have to listen to you pontificate about what you think is going to be the best way to go. Throw your ideas out there and let them add to it. Let them also poke holes in your idea. That doesn't mean they're pushing against. They just are bringing up some very real world questions that you're going to have to answer so that you can try to navigate through. You're not going to have all the answers. You're going to have to maybe go forward with the general idea, knowing you're going to have to kind of figure some stuff out along the way. You cannot be hung up so much on the how. You're still chasing after your vision. The what you're trying to get to is not so much the how and how you're going to get there. That's kind of the creative journey you're going to adventure you're going to create for yourself along the way. And then even celebrate either minor improvements, minor innovations. Let me give you some examples. We have an iTero scanner, and we would run out of scanner sleeves. What happened is the staff used to put them in all the different rooms and all the different operatories, and they just assumed that there was always backup, in inventory in some of the other rooms. Well, then they would end up depleting our inventory, and then, I would be upset. Like, we need to be better about this, because this happened like 3 times over a 6-month period. And so one staff person said, why don't we do this? Why don't we get little bins to put on the carts? We'll put all the sleeves in there, and we'll also have it in our storage closet. It means there's only going to be, we have 2 scanners, there's only 3 places you're going to find it, either on the 2 scanner units that on the cart system, or they're going to be in the storage area. Now we have a way of getting a more predictable inventory control of what we're doing. Again, this isn't mind-blowing, industry disrupting changes. This is a minor little change. And call that person during a meeting and said, hey, I want to appreciate so-and-so for coming up with an idea on how we can better manage our inventory when it comes to scanner sleeves. Here's some other ones, colored papered for different forms. I'm sure many of you are already doing that. You have a new patient form, have it a different color. If you have something you need to refer out, different color. You have all these different colors so that people can easily find what they need instead of sifting through a bunch of papers that are on their desk. You can also make dummy codes for better internal communication. As you know, with dental procedures, every procedure we do has some sort of code. Well, you can do the code and then put a dot and then a few characters after that, and your insurance claims will go through. It'll be fine, but you can use those dot plus characters in order to offer a better way for your staff to understand codes and maybe a certain sequence and how you want to do that. How about you limit the number of fluoride flavors? We used to have like 6 or 7 different flavors, and of course, patients would sit around and wonder, what do they want, especially the kids. They want this one, they want that one. It just started, elongating the amount of time they're in the treatment room. Also, we had inventory. It's like, we're running low on this one. We got to order more of that one. Let's just limit it to the most popular 2. Let's just make this super simple so people can make their decision and we can just move on. And so, that may seem like that'd be something against what would be a consumerism, but really, in the end, it's not that big of a deal, but it kind of helped us be more efficient. Another staff person came to me and said, hey, we could maybe shop around and get better pricing on our credit card processing. They were able to find that and were able to do it. Now that we had to do some switching and changing and so forth, and there was a little bit of a hassle for that, but it resulted in us saving money, in the long run. Another, and let's just, last idea, what if we had an operatory? Maybe you have one that's just kind of open, doesn't really get scheduled. Why don't you have it set up to do a restorative procedure, a simple filling or crown that you're trying to add into the appointment same day? If the room is already set, it's one less hassle. It's also saves you some time, 3 to 5 minutes of having to set up a room. It's really not so much the time as it is the hassle factor. If the staff have already put in the effort to have that room put together, it makes it so much easier for them to be on board with you saying, hey, why don't we go ahead and slip that procedure in before this patient goes? Maybe they came straight out of hygiene and now you're ready to do this procedure and you can just get it done. Make it convenient for the patient. Get the production in now. Don't clog up your schedule with something that can be done right now. Simple little things like this that will kind of help move things forward. If you have a learning zone type of culture, something where people are willing to take that risk, have an idea, and be celebrated for it, and even if there are mistakes, they're not going to get zinged or called out or in trouble for creating something that maybe resulted in a less than ideal outcome. So celebrate those wins, create that right environment. Again, if your culture allows for this, it'll be great. This is, again, the owner's responsibility. Remember, this whole presentation is all about resistance of staff, or staff being resistant to ideas. The first two things I'm mentioning is really going to be on the owner. The owner has to set the stage so that staff can be allowed to flourish. Now let's switch gears. Let's go over to the staff. Is the staff willing to follow your vision? Okay. And we'll tell you this, most staff will be on board. If you've taken care of those first two things, then most staff will be on board. But some staff simply won't be, and they're just a mismatch for your practice. They're not necessarily wrong. They're just now in the wrong place. Before, or when they were brought on board, they may have thought it was going to be a certain thing, but now you, chasing your vision, chasing your dream, the thing that you are risking, what you want to do with your practice, some people are going to be on board with it. Like I think most of them are going to be on board with them. Some, however, are just not. And they need to move on to another place. I know that's difficult to think about, but because some staff are very valuable in the sense that they've been there for a long time, they know how everything works, they know all the patients, maybe there's some sort of social connection, maybe you know them at church, or they're family members, or who knows what your connection is with them, and letting them go has more to it than just simply letting them go. You fear the other ramifications that will happen if this individual were to leave. All I can tell you is that from my 25 plus years of owning a practice, I've had some key people along the way that I always thought, oh my gosh, if they'd left, that would be terrible. And I've had some people leave, just either they're retired or they became disabled and couldn't work. Like I'm thinking of one hygienist right now, very, very good, helped me build the practice. But then she developed a disability and she could not practice any longer. She left dentistry completely. Yet her patients still came to see me. Okay, they still came because they were able to transition to another hygienist. And other people that, like I said, they had a very good grasp on how things run in the practice. And when they left, yes, they took a lot of knowledge with them, and we had to kind of figure it out. But you can figure it out. You just cannot have someone that's going to be resistant to you wanting to follow your vision. So as you're trying to do, obviously a very simple diagram, you're trying to move from old to new. And here's the thing with old. It's familiar. There's proof that it works because, well, that's the way we've always done it, and it seemed to work just fine. And you come along and want to do something new, there's an element that's unknown, and it might not work. And it's going to require more mental energy, and it's going to require time, and it's going to be a hassle initially for some of your staff who long for the old days. They wanted to stay there. They don't want to move to the new, and that's just the way some people are. Thankfully, it's not a majority of your staff. It's just some. And here's the thing. In business, you don't have time to work through people's emotional hangups about this. You just don't have time to try to nurture them and pull them and persuade them. You're doing your best. Remember, you're doing those first two things. You're just trying to you're being clear. You're making it a safe space. And if they cannot get on board with it, then again, it's just time to part ways. So again, this is the staff's responsibility. And to kind of recap, again, what's your vision for the practice? Does your culture allow for mistakes? And then are your staff willing to follow your vision? Those are the top three things. If you can go through that, you'll make it very easy for you to deal with staff, to get on board with what you're trying to do. But then if they aren't, well, I think you know what you need to do. Hopefully this has been helpful. Take care.